So this video is going to be a little different than usual. It's not really going to be as structured. I'm not going to edit this at all because I kind of just want to get the review out because I know everybody's already talked about the film. So you're going to hear all my as, my ms, my my every time I'm mixing up words, every time I say the wrong thing. I'm just going to leave it all in. So it's part of it. There was also a huge storm in Ireland last night today. Apparently the worst we've ever had. So that kind of made today feel weird. But I'm just fresh off of Section 31. Just finished it. The first Star Trek film in almost 10 years, 9 years-ish. What Beyond was like summer of 2016. It's like July 2016. I think it came out the day after my grad, which is for Americans, it's the equivalent of like prom or whatever. But because I remember seeing it the next day after that. Yeah, look, some context. If you've watched any of my prior videos on Star Trek, you know that I'm generally more lenient on the newer stuff than a lot of people are. There is a lot of the Star Trek fan base who are super against everything New Trek does, hates Discovery, hates Picard, hates Strange New Worlds, hates all of it. I love Strange New Worlds, I love Picard Season 3, I love Prodigy, I love Lower Decks, and I think Discovery is for the most part fine. I think I call it out sometimes when it's being boring and being a little uninteresting, but generally I think it's a solid show that sometimes can be good, but most of the time is just pretty middle down the road. But it's fine. It's not a terrible show. I try and find something good in everything Trek because I want to like Trek. I want there to be something good and something enjoyable in everything. And I don't want to be dramatic here, but I hate saying this because, I mean, people worked on this. I did film and television in college. In my final year, I directed and wrote a TV pilot. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it gave me a newfound appreciation for how much work goes into making something and being passionate about something. And how you don't spend months of your life making something and not, at the end of the day, want to be proud of it and not at the end of the day want to like it. And I eventually want to someday work in film or in television production in some form. So I feel like I don't want to be super critical of something because if somebody was like this to me, I would hate it. But Star Trek is something that's very close to my heart. It always has been. And I need to be honest about it when it really does annoy me. And in my opinion, Section 31, out of the, what do we have, 49 seasons of television since Lower Decks Season 5, and 13 films with Section 31 being the 14th film, out of all of that, I think Section 31 might be the worst Star Trek I've ever seen. I think it was just a slog to get through. It's only an hour and a half, and it still felt like it was a 3-hour film because it was just slogging. At its best, it's just boring. At its worst, it's a terribly written, cringe-inducing insult to everything that Star Trek as a franchise is. This was not the film to bring Star Trek back as a movie franchise. We should have gone higher, we should have gone better, we should have gone bigger, we should have gone bolder. This doesn't feel like Star Trek. And I mean, I know people have been saying since Discovery came out, New Trek isn't Star Trek. I feel like Discovery is Star Trek. I feel like Strange New Worlds is Star Trek. I feel like Picard is Star Trek. I don't feel like Section 31 was Star Trek. At all. They have this opening like bit, okay, where we're recapping Philippa Georgiou's events from Star Trek Discovery, but we're doing it through like this panel of like different, I don't know, it's like a creative montage to like recap the stuff for people who might not have watched Discovery or might not remember Discovery. What it ends up feeling like is, I don't know how many people are familiar with the Mission Impossible franchise, but in some of the Mission Impossible films, we start off with Ethan Hunt's character, Tom Cruise. He is like sitting down, he gets sent the Mission Impossible briefing for what his next mission is going to be, and it's like this quick, I don't know, minute-long montage going through details of who the antagonist of the film is going to be and like showing to Ethan who he's going to have to fight and what he's going to have to do. And it's usually just a really quick way to tell us what the plot is going to be, and then we get into the film. That is what this feels like. It feels like a really bad version of the beginning of a Mission Impossible film, but nothing reminiscent of a Star Trek film. And that's kind of just this entire film. It feels like a mismatch of like the worst parts of Mission Impossible, the worst parts of Suicide Squad. they just mix them together, they put them in a blender, and they see what they come out with, which is not Star Trek. Like one of the feelings I had during this film was that it felt like, so the history of Suicide Squad, the 2016 Suicide Squad film, it was re-edited by a company that predominantly does like movie trailers and something like that because they wanted their version of Guardians of the Galaxy. So the film got all cut up and turned into what the end edit felt like was a music video or a movie trailer, kind of to match what the Suicide Squad trailers were like. That's the feeling Section 31 gave me. About 25 minutes in, when we're getting introduced to all of the new characters and we're kind of going through them, I felt like I was watching a really fast-paced music video or a really fast-paced movie trailer. And I was like, the pacing is super off in this, the music is really weird, the introductions of the characters are really strange, nothing here is landing. I feel like I'm watching a movie trailer. It feels like it's edited like a movie trailer. And when we're getting introduced to all the characters, we're doing it through Philippa Georgiou's, like, her description of them all. So she's describing somebody, and then we get like a freeze frame of that character, and then she's describing them a bit more. And then the dialogue is really weird because there's this Delton character that I'm forgetting her name, but she comes up and Philippa Georgiou says like 3 times, she goes, this Delton character is trying to get up to sexy time or whatever. Like, that's such a weird thing to say in a Star Trek film. And there's other moments like this where it's like Rachel Garrett is like, me and Chaos are friends with benefits, or some of the characters will get into arguments over whether somebody said God sent or God's end or something like that. And it's like, it's a lot of these weird dialogue moments that feels like you're just watching like a mid to late 2010s film, which, I don't know, that's not Star Trek. Like, Star Trek, sure, the films, the 90s films, they felt like they were from the 90s. The 80s films felt like they were from the 80s. The J.J. Abrams stuff felt like they were from the 2010s. But they still managed to feel futuristic. You didn't feel like the characters were talking like people from today. You felt like from a filmmaking standpoint, they were filmed like a film from then, but the characters weren't talking like they were from then. But in Section 31, the characters talk like they're from... I don't even want to say that like they're from today, because it doesn't feel like what people talk like. It feels like what 40, 50-year-olds think younger people talk like, sort of thing. Like Rachel Garrett saying Chaos is just friends with benefits, or Philippa Georgiou saying sexy time. It's like, young people don't talk like that. But this feels like what the people who made the film think young people today talk like. And they're trying to match that. And I don't know why you would want to do that in a Star Trek film. It comes across really weird. And it comes across kind of like that meme of like, how do you do, fellow kids? It comes across kind of like that, where it's like they're trying to I don't know, I'm blanking on the word. They're trying to reach out to people who are younger today to get younger Star Trek fans involved, which this has me worried now for Starfleet Academy, because we know Starfleet Academy as a show is going to try and reach out to that sort of demographic and that sort of fan base. And if their movie feels like this, I'm worried for what that means for the show. But like Discovery sometimes would do this as well, where they'd have characters talk super quick and super like technical or whatever, and try and make them sound like they're, you know, these quippy, quirky characters in an attempt to feel like they're from today. But I even feel like Discovery was never this bad at it the way Section 31 was. And this next bit I want to talk about, it's more so an Irish problem. The Vulcan character in this film has a very, very, very loud and obnoxious version of an Irish accent. And I know what you're going to say, you know, he's a Vulcan. He's not Irish, he's not Scottish, he's not American, he's not any of these other nationalities. He's a Vulcan at the end of the day. You know, it's not Irish. But they clearly wanted him to sound Irish. And, I mean, Star Trek has had their dabbles in the past with semi-racist, semi-stereotypical, semi-offensive Star Trek Irish things. We've had Next Generation did it in season 2 with the episode Up the Long Ladder, where they had their whole Irish peasantry characters from the 22nd century show up. Was really racist, was really offensive, but it was the late 1980s. Okay, they shouldn't have done it, whatever. Then Voyager shows up in the early 2000s in season 6 with their 2 episodes set in their Fairhaven Irish holodeck, where Janeway has her iconic delete the wife moment where she removes the guy's wife because she wants to be the wife. Voyager got weird sometimes. Anyway, season 6, Voyager had their 2 episodes set in an Irish village from the like late 19th century, early 20th century holodeck thing. And that was the early 2000s, so it's a little harder to justify it because it was also offensive, almost racist stereotyping of Irish culture, where it feels like sometimes American media believes the Irish all live in these cottages and every day they go down the pub and they've got this flute and this Irish music playing in the background all day, and there's sheep walking all over the roads and all that sort of stuff. And that's not the case at all, but it sometimes feels like that's what American media still feels like Ireland is today. And Voyager shouldn't have been doing this in the early 2000s, but fine. It was 25 years ago. Let's hope that American media has moved on slightly. And then Section 31 comes out with a Vulcan character that I think the actor is South African. And he is putting on a hugely, hugely, hugely toned up Irish accent that sounds like what a leprechaun in like a 90s episode of The Simpsons would sound like, where, you know, the way like Simpsons would have those episodes where they'd bring in a leprechaun and it would be super stereotypical and super over the top. But that was the point for The Simpsons. The Simpsons were trying to make fun of things, were trying to make you laugh. That was the point, that it was over the top. You weren't supposed to believe that this was actually what Irish people sounded like. But here, they do that, and you can tell this is their intention to have an actual Irish-sounding character. But he's played by South African. He's doing the most over-the-top thing ever. It comes across racist. It comes across offensive. Comes across annoying. And I mean, ask any Irish person, we're well used to seeing people put on terrible accents in American media, but it feels like they've been getting better at it over the last few years, where American movies and TV shows have now done a better job at actually hiring Irish people to be in their productions. And I don't know why they didn't do that here. There's more than enough Irish people you could look into to hire if you want an Irish sounding character. Why did he have to sound Irish? Why couldn't the guy have just used his normal accent? I'm not sure what he actually sounds like, but I don't know why he couldn't have just used his actual accent. Anyway, that was kind of a side 5-minute rant there about that. Other thing I want to talk about, the music. The score is done by Jeff Russo, who did Discovery, did the first 2 seasons of Picard, did some of Strange New Worlds, has kind of had his hands in a lot of new Trek. Seems like he's kind of new Trek's go-to guy when it comes to composing stuff. But here, I wasn't too impressed with his work. I've been fine with everything else he's done, but there's this whole like music montage bit where we're going through kind of the place where Philip has been the last while. We're learning everyone's names. We're going through the new characters. The music feels super intrusive. It feels like it's just invading every scene. It feels loud. It feels bombastic. It feels like it doesn't fit. It feels just in the way, which a score should never feel in the way. It should feel like it's either enhancing the emotion or whatever you're feeling, or it should be there to just sort of set the tone, set the vibe. The music in this doesn't feel like that. It feels much more like it's trying to sometimes take over from what's actually happening on screen. Like the music wants you to listen to it and not necessarily be paying attention to what's going on dialogue-wise or character-wise, which is the complete wrong move. But the weird thing as well is there's a main theme for the film, like a main bit of music that just feels like the beginning of the Star Trek First Contact music when the Borg are sort of arriving. I'm not going to edit it in here, but go listen to the Star Trek Section 31 main theme and then go listen to like the Borg theme from Star Trek First Contact. They're identical. I actually 100% at times thought it was their way of homaging that music, but I don't think it is. I think they just didn't know. So yeah, they also, sometimes there's some people in the nightclub place that Philippa Georgiou owns, and they're singing music that just sounds again like late 2010s, early 2020s music, which why is that playing in a nightclub? It's another thing where like other Star Trek films wouldn't do this. They feel like they're filmed in those decades, but they don't actually feel like the characters are in those decades. Whereas Section 31 a lot of the time feels like we're in those decades. We're in today sort of thing, but with a future, like, I don't know, vibe on it or something like that. It's weird to say. It's not even like a vibe. But yeah, I don't know. Weird film. Unfortunately, extremely disappointed in it. I was really hyped to see Rachel Garrett. I thought, bringing her in would have given them some cool things to do, but they don't really do anything with her. She's just kind of a generic action quippy character with no real personality to her. Like, I don't know, Next Generation in Yesterday's Enterprise, she was in that episode for like 15 minutes and she immediately sets herself up as a character you want to know more about. And like, there's immediately a presence from her. With an hour and a half here in a movie, this Rachel Garrett doesn't feel anything like that. The writing doesn't do anything to help her stand out the way the Yesterday's Enterprise Rachel Garrett did. And I feel like that's kind of the case for a lot of the new characters. I mean, all of the new characters. None of them stand out. None of them have anything that really makes you want to know more about them. They're just kind of there to be this like Suicide Squad Mission Impossible team. Even Philippa Georgiou, I think, is written here in a much more uninteresting way than she was in Discovery. Like, we get some flashbacks to how she became Empress or Emperor of the Terran Empire, and we get like to learn about some people she was in love with and some people she cared about. But it doesn't do anything to elevate her character. Like, even Discovery, we would have gotten some backstory stuff about Philippa Georgiou in like seasons 2 and 3 about her, and it felt like it elevated her character much more there than Section 31 does here. I know, it's a very awkward film. It doesn't really work in any way, unfortunately. I was worried and nervous about the film for sure, but I had the slightest bit of hope that it was going to be better. And then the reviews came out yesterday and they were really bad, and I was like, I'll go into it with an open mind. But unfortunately, it's pretty much just as bad as everybody says. So yeah, Section 31. Have you seen it? If you have, let me know your thoughts. If you haven't, are you going to watch it? It was definitely a time. If you're not subscribed yet, please do so. Make Star Trek videos every week. If you are subscribed, a like and a share always helps. Thanks so much for watching, and have an amazing day.